Joining me right now is Texas Congressman Mac Thornberry. He is chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. And Mr. Chairman, it's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, what do you think that the president will move to decertify the U.S. and the Iran deal?
I don't know for sure, but I think he may well. I think it's important for everybody to understand that the certification we're talking about is not part of the Iran agreement. It is a reporting requirement to Congress that actually goes beyond the Iran agreement. So it may be that the president says, look, I have concerns about this. They are not letting us into all the sites. I have doubts whether this is in the best interest of the United States, but still not reimpose sanctions, not actually withdraw from the agreement itself.
Okay, so then he pushes it onto Congress, and then you and your colleagues have to decide what action is to be taken. I mean, for example, when you mentioned sanctions, I mean, reinstituting sanctions is one idea, but if the U.S. is doing that alone, does it really matter? Because you've got 5 other countries right here, right, that will weigh in. So even if Congress decides we're going to reduce sanctions, is that really any impact, given that we've got other countries that will have to make a decision on that in that regard as well?
Well, it can have an impact. We're still the biggest, most powerful economy, and we can make a difference. But I think that really the issue, one of the fundamental flaws of the nuclear deal was it just focused very narrowly on their nuclear program, not on the broader range of Iran's malicious activities. And so I think that's the goal of the White House here. Let's have a broader strategy that looks at everything that Iran does, and that may involve sanctions, it may involve a variety of other things, but let's look at this more broadly, not just focus on technical compliance with a flawed agreement.
So if he does not recertify Iran's compliance, what does that mean in terms of congressional action?
Well, it simply means that under congressional procedures, there can be expedited consideration of reimposing sanctions, technically. But the key question, Maria, is what does the president say are his reasons, and what does he ask Congress to do? Again, my hope and what I've encouraged the White House to do is look at this more broadly than just technical compliance with one agreement. And the other thing is that what we're talking about are pieces of paper. What backs up those pieces of paper is the most important thing, and that's hard power, U.S. military power. And so whether we're talking about Iran, North Korea, China, or Russia, the best thing that we could do, however this certification issue comes out, the best thing we could do is get serious about rebuilding and growing our military. That's the ultimate backstop.
So obviously you were happy with the numbers within the budget in terms of military spending?
Well, I'm happy with what the House has passed, with the Senate vote 89-8 on a similar number, and then the President at the UN endorsed those numbers. What I worry about is that people in both parties try to use military spending as a football. Republicans say they'll increase defense spending only if you cut other spending. Democrats say we'll increase defense spending only if you increase other spending. So we need to evaluate defense spending on its merits, look at the threats around the world, like Iran, look at the increasing accident rates, unfortunately, that we're seeing in our military, and do the right thing by them and leave those other issues for other debates.
Yeah, you play with it like it's football. Meanwhile, you've got the military hanging in the balance. We know that our Navy is some of the oldest fleet that we know of, that some of the ships, apparently, or planes rather, are not usable for an actual combat situation. General Jack Keane says it's up to 50% that are not ready.
Yeah, I think most Americans don't know that. For the Navy, half of their planes cannot fly because of mechanical reasons. But let me give you another example. We've had 2 tragic accidents in the Pacific, lost 2 destroyers that are now being repaired. It turns out some of those sailors on those ships were working 100 hours a week.
Wow.
They were deployed so often they never got the training they were supposed to get. Those ships were out of certification because they're always on guard trying to protect us against North Korea. So we need to repair better, but we also need to grow because the threats are not shrinking. Unfortunately, we have shrunk our military too much in the past few years.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of important points. Let me ask you about North Korea before you go real quick, because there's this October 10th date floating out there that Kim Jong-un's regime may want to do something in terms of rockets being sent. What is the answer to the North Korean threat that has clearly become much more dangerous?
Well, the number one answer is we need more missile defense right now to protect ourselves and our allies. We also need more ships and planes and munitions right there on China's doorstep to encourage them to be much more aggressive at reining North Korea in. Look, it may come to military confrontation. We can win, but it will be ugly. But the way to prevent war is to be strong. And unfortunately, because of the accidents we were just talking about, we've got 2 fewer destroyers in the Pacific than we had just a few weeks ago.
Wow, this is a dangerous moment in time for sure. Real quick before you go, let me end where it began. Do you want to see the U.S. pull out of the Iran nuclear deal?
I do not want the U.S. to pull completely out because Iran has already gotten the plane load of cash and a lot of the benefit of it. So, but I do want us to look at everything that Iran's doing, their missile program, the problems they're causing in Yemen, Syria, their conventional, and that's where it comes back to growing and strengthening our own military. To me, that's more important than whatever happens to a piece of paper.
Apparently. Mr. Chairman, good to see you, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you, ma'am.